You know, if Jasmine Crockett from Texas can be a congressperson, pretty much anyone can be a pretty much anyone can be a congressperson. Hell, I love my chances now. I look at Jasmine Crockett from Texas and I go, this woman got elected to Congress? This is a woman who the people in Texas thought was qualified enough to serve. This was the people they want. Okay, you guys, whatever. You go, Texas. You go with your Jasmine Crockett bad self. She's proving herself. She's proving herself to be, of all the Jasmine Crockett's in the world, she's the Jasmine Crockettist. And I'll explain to you why here in just a minute. First, though, Donald Trump is at it again. Here's why people love Donald Trump. I know a lot of people know. Everyone has a reason why they love Donald Trump. But one of the reasons most people love Donald Trump is because he's just like us. He gossips. He has an idea. He has an opinion. He throws it out there. Donald Trump does not sugarcoat a gosh darn thing. You will not get diabetes at a Donald Trump press conference because nothing is sugar-coated. It's all in your face. He tells the truth. He tells it honestly. He says what he feels. If he thinks something's odd, he'll let you know it's odd. And we saw that the very first night of the plane crash on Wednesday night when we first started getting reports about the Black Hawk helicopter, or the Army helicopter rather, that flew into the commuter airliner jet from American Airlines coming in from Wichita, Kansas, plunging both of them, a fiery explosion. And then they both plunged into the icy cold waters of the Potomac River. No survivors, 64 dead on the American Airlines craft, 3 dead on the Army helicopter, no survivors whatsoever. And it sparked a frenzy yesterday as Donald Trump took to the podium in the press briefing room and started to blame Joe Biden's DEI policies, Joe Biden's FAA hiring policies. And sure enough, the media went ballistic. They went apoplectic. The Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, who, by the way, how is this guy? Another one. I feel like DJ Khaled, another one. Here's another beauty that the Democrats are sending to Congress. This guy's literally out there trying to drum up some violence against conservatives. There's no what do you call it? Ethics violations for Hakeem Jeffries that we know of. This guy's the leader of the Democrat Party, and he's out there calling for violence in the streets.
We are going to fight it. Legislatively, we are going to fight it in the courts, and we're going to fight it in the streets.
I mean, that's definitely some Maxine Waters stuff. A little reminiscent of Maxine Waters. Hakeem Jeffries, we're going to fight it in the courts. We're going to fight it in the streets. Now, when you're a Democrat and you're the leader of the party, he's the leader, he's the minority leader in Congress, and he's getting up there in front of his constituents on camera and he's saying, let's go fight in the streets. That to me seems like an ethics violation. But again, I'm not in Congress yet. One day, very soon, I will open up some kind of investigation into minority leader Hakeem Jeffries and see what he's got going on. But look, Donald Trump, back to him. There's no such thing in Donald Trump's mind as too soon. The words too soon, they don't exist in Donald Trump's vernacular. In fact, here's why Donald Trump's such a great leader and a great president. Instead of saying the words too soon, like yesterday at the press briefing room, I'll just play it for you here in a minute. But yesterday in the press briefing room, he started to say stuff and everyone was like, whoa, too soon. And I'm like, 64 people are dead on a plane. 3 servicemen and women have been killed in a helicopter crash. It's not too soon, it's too late. And that's how Donald Trump thinks as well. He's like, what weren't we doing before that we should have done to prevent this? We need to do it right now. There's no too soon. There's no sugarcoating. There's no let's pause and give space and wait till everybody's emotions die down. No, when you're emotional, that's when you should really go and get things done. And that's exactly what Donald Trump does. And the left can't handle it, man. They can't hack it. They hate it. They despise it. They're just over there like, oh my God, I can't believe it's only been 2 weeks. And already Donald Trump is a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad person. Listen, we've got a bunch of stuff to go get into today. We're going to get into the latest with this crash. There is brand new video footage. And I was waiting for this because DC, look, I'm not saying they've got spy video everywhere, but there's video everywhere. I mean, I've got 8 video cameras on my house. I can't imagine that there's not more video cameras at DCA, Reagan National Airport, right across the street from the Jefferson Memorial, right down the road from the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, the Capitol Building, the White House. I mean, you're talking about the airport that is that is geographically closest to the hub of our government. Of course, there's going to be cameras everywhere. And sure enough, there were cameras everywhere. And man, we got a video from CNN. I guess CNN got exclusive. They got this video exclusively. I watched this thing 19 times and it gave me shivers every single time. There's no way in my mind. And again, I don't know. I haven't heard the cockpit recorder that was recovered from the American Airlines plane. I know there isn't one in the. They were saying that in the Army helicopter they don't have black boxes. I guess that's true. I was never in the military. I never served in the Air Force or the Army or anything like that. But from what I've heard, and I've been listening to a lot of people, from what I've heard, they don't have black boxes in military helicopters because there's not a lot of room. And every single inch needs to be taken up for some kind of military transponder or some other kind of device or whatever it is. There's like a whole issue where they design these things to be lethal aircraft. And if it's unnecessary, it's out of there. And apparently these black boxes are unnecessary in the military aircraft. So there isn't one. But I'm just going to say, there's somewhere somebody knows something. It's Donald Trump, and he's letting us know with these clues. But this video that I'm going to show you here in just a minute, I'm watching it, and I'm counting the seconds. And it does not look to me like this helicopter made any effort to get out of the way of this plane. It looks to me like this helicopter, for, like I said, several seconds, was flying toward the plane, clearly saw the plane. And I know they're talking about night vision goggles. I know they're talking about looking out the side of the window and is there roof visibility and whatnot. This video, and I'm going to show it in a minute. This video, to me, clearly, you see the plane ahead of you. You're flying toward the plane, and there doesn't, in my totally non-expert opinion, my totally uninformed, unscientific, untrained opinion, there does not look to be any movement on this helicopter to stop or get out of the way of this American Airlines plane, which again was landing. Apparently the jet was fine. No one has said the jet was on the wrong runway. They changed runways apparently at the last minute, but they were on the right runway. They were cleared for landing. They were on the approach. They were seconds away from hitting the runway when this whole thing happened. But it's that helicopter, man. It's the helicopter. And we found out that there was a female pilot on board piloting the craft at the time. She was going through her checks or whatever, her training. It was like some kind of mandatory scheduled annual checkup where I guess once a year you have to go in and say, hey, let's prove that you can still fly a helicopter, ironically. And those have all been paused while Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, investigates. But this video, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show it to you here in just a second because it is wild. It is wild, but there's a lot of talk, and Donald Trump started it about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the FAA. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it's just the FAA that he's talking about. I think he's talking about the military. Now, thankfully, both of those have been dismissed. Donald Trump has ended DE&I in the military. He's ended DE&I hiring principles and practices in the federal government and specifically the FAA. And he talked about that. He talked about in the Oval Office how he just re-signed an order. It was an order, and then it wasn't because Joe Biden came in, and now it's an order again. And he said, this is something I just signed this into law.
Upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. You have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it.
Naturally talented geniuses. That's what he's looking for. Naturally talented geniuses. So it's good. Look, it's comforting to know that I always have air traffic controller to fall back on because I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I consider myself to, if you saw my IQ score, you'd be like, whoa, I didn't even know they went that high. But you know who wouldn't be? You know who wouldn't be is Jasmine Crockett, because Jasmine Crockett is not a smart person. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, she wrote yesterday, by the way, she got totally hosed by the community notes, by the way. They did a number on her pretty quickly. Jasmine Crockett yesterday wrote, on his first day in office, Donald Trump froze the hiring of federal employees, including air traffic controllers. To which Readers immediately added context. Federal air traffic controllers are exempted from the hiring freeze. This is a woman, one of 435 members of Congress, who doesn't know that Donald Trump's federal hiring freeze does not include air traffic controllers, and is out there spreading lies, spreading propaganda, spreading mistruths, spreading deceit and dishonesty on X. Also, while this has been community noted, she's not even bright enough to take it down. She's a woman. Jasmine Crockett left up something that was false, proven false by people on community notes, is currently going viral. I'm talking about it on this show to thousands and thousands of people, and she left it up. She doesn't even know when it's time to, hey, we should probably cut our losses on this X post. We should probably delete this tweet and move on with our lives, and maybe be a little bit more careful in the future when we start going out and tweeting stuff. Listen, I'm going to show you this video because it's insane. But first, make sure you're subscribed to this channel, because this channel is the channel to be subscribed to. We have videos coming out every single day. In the morning, we do a morning podcast. Right now, we're doing our Right Now podcast. We have videos coming out constantly and shorts, and so much that's going to be going on in the next few. But you think January. Really, since November the 5th, it's been nonstop news. November the 5th, we had the election. We had our big election night party, and it's been nonstop content creation. We paused a tiny bit for Christmas and New Year's. We came right back. There were a couple days where I was sick. You remember that? That's not, we don't want to relive that. But it's been go, go, go. We've had the inauguration. We've had this airline crash. We've had all of the, yesterday. Oh, we got to talk about some of these Senate confirmation hearings, too. Some of the best moments I've ever seen in my entire life on television. And I'm not just talking about C-SPAN. I'm talking about on television. I don't care how much you loved Ozark. I don't care how much you love Severance, whatever your favorite, Yellowstone. I know those are all great shows. But what we saw yesterday in the Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. Senate confirmation meetings rival, and I would say in many instances, pummel anything I've seen on television in my entire life. But go ahead and subscribe, hit like, hit subscribe, set the notifications. If you're listening to the podcast, you're going to want to listen to this podcast. We have two now, by the way, in the top 200 podcasts. The 47 Daily and Mark Kaye Saves the Republic are both top rated podcasts. And yes, somebody wrote me the other day, I know there's an imposter podcast. Just pay it no mind. Just ignore it. Don't even pay attention to it. People, if you have a great idea, people are going to try to rip it off. And I had a great idea and somebody tried to rip it off, but I'm not even going to mention it. Because ours is better, way, way better. Hey, listen, one other thing is today we're going to be chatting with Paul Stone. Paul Stone is the CEO of Colonial Metals Group and a sponsor of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And listen, if you've ever thought about investing in gold, if you've ever said, I really need to secure my financial future, and I don't know if this IRA is doing it for me. The stock market fluctuates up and down, up and down. The dollar is so unpredictable. Donald Trump's talking about the BRICS countries. He's now threatening BRICS countries because they're trying to take away the dollar as the centralized unit of currency. All this stuff. If you want to make your savings bulletproof, you can get a free gold guide right now for 2025 when you go to Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group. Inside, learn how to protect and grow your retirement savings with a gold IRA, how to safeguard your retirement tax-free and penalty-free, how to protect your financial future ASAP, like right this minute. And for a limited time, Colonial Metals is offering $7,500 in free silver on qualifying accounts. So download the gold guide, call in, and if you qualify, $7,500 in free silver, like real silver. They'll send it to you, or they'll just secure it in a vault of your either one, whatever you want. But the place to go is freegoldguide.com/K. freegoldguide.com/KAYE. It's my last name. It's easy to find. There's a link in the description of this video if you'd prefer. freegoldguide.com/K. Paul Stone coming up a little later on today. All right, before we get to all of the fiery, explosive moments in the Senate confirmation hearings of Kash Patel, of Tulsi Gabbard, and of RFK Jr. Let's get to the fiery explosion over the Potomac River that was the Army helicopter flying into a commuter airline that killed, in the end, 67 people. No survivors on board either aircraft. We played for you yesterday the video that we had. There were a couple of views. There was the main camera view, which we saw from, and this was far away. This was from the Kennedy Center. And, you know, it's kind of tough to see, but if you zoom in, you can see the plane flying in, coming in for a landing. You can see the little dot behind it flying right toward it, and then boom, the explosion where it just lights up the sky, and then the debris falls into the Potomac River. We did see that one yesterday. There was another view from the airport. It looks like somebody on the ground or near the, I guess, working at the airport or looking out a window got a view. I don't know what they were even filming, but they caught another view of it a little closer. And from this viewpoint that we saw, the second video yesterday, you could see kind of that it was almost like they were flying directly into each other. Well, today we have a third video. And this video has been going, it's everywhere. It's all over the internet. And it is shocking to me because in this video, which I've watched now probably a bajillion times. That's an industry term, by the way. This video that I've watched probably like a bajillion times now, I cannot, for the life of me, see any other way that this was not an accident. Because the amount of time that this helicopter flies directly toward this airplane without maneuvering to the left, maneuvering to the right, helicopters are not planes, right? The one thing we always learn about helicopters, and if you've ever flown in a helicopter, you know this, a lot of people have flown helicopters. I'm learning. I had no idea how many people watch this show and listen to this show and follow me on X who are helicopter pilots. But apparently there's a lot of y'all out there. And this helicopter, the thing about helicopters is they go straight up and down. That's their unique principle. They go straight up and down. They go back and forth. They can stop almost on a dime and hover. I mean, hovering is what they do, right? That's the cool thing about helicopters. They hover over spaces, and that's why the police use them. That's why the Army uses them. That's why, that's why people use them, because they're good like that. Well, this helicopter flying toward a plane that I can't believe anybody on board this helicopter didn't see, especially the pilot, made no attempt to go up, go down, stop and hover. In fact, the opposite seems to be true. And again, I don't know what happened. I'm still just watching this grainy video, but watch this. Listen to it. I'll describe it for those of you listening on the podcast. But this to me is the most insane video I've ever seen.
These videos obtained exclusively by CNN show previously unseen angles of the collision between an American Airlines flight and a US Army Black Hawk helicopter. In the first video, the Black Hawk can be seen flying at speed over the Potomac from the left side of the screen. The American Airlines plane can be seen flying towards the airport before the two collide, causing a mid-air explosion and fall into the river. In the second video, you can see the Army helicopter and American Airlines plane travel toward each other. After the collision and subsequent explosion, the airliner can be seen spinning into the water, and the Black Hawk is also seen falling into the water.
Okay, now, again, this is I'm gonna mute this because I don't necessarily need. I mean, she had a lovely accent and everything, but I'm gonna count the number of seconds here. Okay, so this is just what we caught on video. Okay, so here we go. Here's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just from this video, there's 7 seconds where this helicopter is flying directly toward this commuter airliner. And again, the thing is that there's lights on this plane. You know how bright these planes are. These planes are loud, they're light, they're lit up, there's bright lights. It's impossible not to see this plane. I mean, you're flying this Army helicopter and you're telling me you can't see this bright ball of glowing, tin and metal right in front of you? It's so bizarre. And the amount of time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, I don't know anything about speed or physics or trajectory or propulsion. I'm not that kind of guy. But I'm just saying, it's very, very weird. It's very, very weird. I'm not the only one that thinks that, by the way. I'm not the only one that thinks something's up here. I'm not the only one that thinks this is quizzical, this is odd, this is bizarre. What actually went on up in the skies? What actually went on with that? I'm not the only one that thinks that. You know who else thinks that? The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, who on Truth Social wrote, "The Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high. by a lot. It was far above the 200-foot limit. That's not really too complicated to understand, is it? The Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high by a lot. It was far above the 200-foot limit. That's not really too complicated to understand, is it? And what does... Now, for a lot of people, they're going, wait a minute, what? I don't understand. What does Donald Trump mean by that? The Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high by a lot. It was like Hunter Biden high. It was above the 200-foot. There's a 200-foot limit, apparently, for Black Hawk helicopters at the airport. I didn't know that. These are all things that we're learning. That's not really too complicated to understand, is it? So why would it be flying too high? Especially if it's on a training mission. Now, the way that Pete Hegseth explained this training mission, again, these were pilots who were not new pilots. You know, you hear training mission and you're like, oh, it's like driver's ed. No, these are pilots that had thousands of hours in the air. These are pilots that supposedly knew what they were doing. But the military requires annual checkups, basically, just like your dentist does or your gynecologist or whatever. And so you got to go and you got to get an annual checkup. And the annual checkup required a test of your night flying skills. And that's what this was. So the pilot, a female again, was with an instructor, or the instructor, who was a male, and then this other third crew member in the back. And they were doing this training drill. Well, if these are experienced pilots with a lot of time under their belts, thousands of hours in the air, doing a mandatory annual refresher or checkup, why is it that they don't know that they have to fly under the 200-foot limit? Why is it that they don't know that they're staring down the barrel of a commuter aircraft that is heading directly toward them, or that they're heading directly toward? Why is it they don't know how to stop, hover, go up, go down immediately to avoid any kind of collision? Why does that not happen? Weird. Totally weird. There's a guy that posted a video, which I thought was kind of interesting, especially after I heard about the 200-foot limit. This video was posted the other day, and this is a guy who said, look, I was actually flying into DCA. I was flying down the Potomac River to the same airport, similar flight, and I saw the helicopters, and he got video of it, and he thought to himself, those are really, that looks dangerous. Those things are really close. But you can clearly see, even in this video, that these Black Hawks flying along the Potomac River, while they are close to jets, are well below the jets. They're flying just above the water. They're not at all at the same height as the passenger jet, and it is really weird. It is really bizarre that you would have these two things at the same altitude, and that's exactly what Donald Trump was saying. He's saying there's somewhere along the line somebody messed up, and it was either someone in the tower, the FAA, it was somebody perhaps in the chopper. We're not really sure. Could be both. We don't really know, but that seems to be the conversation. And Donald Trump is saying, look, we definitely have some issues. Somebody says is it safe to fly? And Donald Trump said yes, it's totally safe to fly, but we need to make some changes.
Should people be hesitant to fly right
No,
now?
not at all. I've not hesitated to fly. This is something that it's been many years that something like this has happened. And the collision is just something that we don't expect ever to happen again. We are going to have the highest level people. We've already hired some of the people that you've already hired for that position long before we knew about this. I mean, long before. From the time I came in, we started going out and getting the best people because I said it's not appropriate what they're doing. I think it's a tremendous mistake. You know, they like to do things and they like to take them too far, and this is sometimes what ends up happening. Now, with that, I'm not blaming the controller. I'm saying there are things that you could question, like the height of the helicopter, the height of the plane being at the same level and going in opposite directions. It's not a positive. But no, we're already hiring people. No, flying is very safe. We have the safest flying anywhere in the world, and we'll keep it that way.
All right, we have the safest flying anywhere in the world. We're going to keep it that way. But there are some things you should question, like why were the planes at the same flight? Why were they at the same altitude? The plane and the helicopter should not be at the same altitude. Why was it that they were flying directly toward each other? They shouldn't be flying directly toward each other. What was going on? What was different? What was the issue? What was the problem? Well, we're starting to learn what some of the problems were. And some of the problems, as Donald Trump pointed out, were the hiring practices of the Biden administration.
Upon entering office, I signed.
Wait, that's the clip I already played. Hang on, let me play this one for you. This is the one that I want right here.
Are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior. And that's what we're going to have. Yeah.
You also have to look at not only the people that are doing the job, but the number of people who are doing the job, because this article from the Post Millennial came out just a short while ago. Air traffic control supervisor allowed one controller to go home early on the night of the fatal crash. An air traffic controller allowed one supervisor allowed one air traffic controller to leave prior to 9:30 p.m. on Wednesday, ahead of Wednesday night's fatal collision between a Black Hawk helicopter and an American Airlines flight that was approaching a runway at Reagan National Airport for landing. An air traffic controller supervisor reportedly let a controller go home early. A person briefed on staffing and an internal preliminary FAA safety report told the New York Times that an air traffic control supervisor allowed one air traffic controller to leave before 9:30 p.m. on Wednesday. The preliminary report said that the tasks of handling helicopter traffic in the area and managing planes at the area are typically divided between 10 a.m. and 9:30 p.m., after which, when traffic slows, the duties are normally combined. So somebody went home early. They were allowed to go home early. And what that meant was the person that was left there, they had to handle the helicopter traffic and the airline traffic, and that's when they got into the weeds, and that's when bad things happen. It's like when, if you're ever a waiter and somebody leaves early and you got to pick up their tables, it's the same damn thing. Only you're not killing 67 people if you, if you drop a plate or if you forget to ring in an order. This left one air traffic controller handle both roles. It was revealed on Thursday that the number of staff in Reagan National's air traffic control tower was, quote, not normal for the time of day and volume of traffic. The tower at DC's closest airport has reportedly been understaffed for years, being nearly a third below targeted staff levels as of September 2023, with 19 fully certified controllers. Many controllers have had to work up to 6 days per week and 10 hours per day. The helicopter was reportedly flying at a higher altitude and off course when it struck the American Airlines flight approaching a runway at the DC area airport Wednesday evening. It was reported flying over 300 feet and a half mile off course from where it should have been. 300 feet and a half mile off course from where it should have been. The helicopter was supposed to be flying Route 4, a predetermined route that hugs the east bank of the Potomac River. There were 3 people on board the helicopter and 64 passengers and crew. None of them survived. Now, every single news outlet, every single news organization has been trying to find their go-to Black Hawk expert. They've been trying to find somebody who can talk about it. Michael Pearson, who's with the FAA or was with the FAA, was on one of the, I think it was Fox News, and he had a very, very interesting take on this entire thing as I watched it.
This is a preventable disaster. The system has been under attack due to DEI and the FAA bowing to wokeness since 2010, since the Obama administration. The lack of staffing is directly attributable to the Obama administration terminating the lists of eligible, well-trained air traffic control statements in 36 universities across the country in 2013 because they were too white. The FAA also, at the same time, implemented an immunity program. So you think you're seeing legitimate statistics, you're not. In the old days, before 2010, the immunity program, if an air traffic controller got 2 airplanes too close, too many times, they would be decertified and retrained. Now, they're not. All they have to do within 48 hours of being noticed or being investigated for a potential separation error, they're called operational errors in the FAA, the controller just simply has to avail themselves of this program that gives them immunity. And when I say immunity, I mean immunity. The FAA cannot retrain these people. If somebody has a repetitive instance of malfeasance or lack of competency, the FAA, because of this immunity program, cannot rectify the situation. They have to basically allow the person to remain in the same position. It's very, very difficult for the FAA to retrain a controller, and it's attributed to, quite frankly, the union and the FAA working together to basically use this program to gerrymander the statistics of near-midair collisions.
Scott,
You mentioned that. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
This is a preventable disaster.
All right, so
this is.
We don't need to watch it again. So that's basically all the DEI policies that the Joe Biden administration has put into effect in not just the FAA, but in every aspect of our government, every single agency, the military, every single branch of the military, everywhere you go. It was never about the right person for the right job. It was never about who's capable. It was never about keeping people safe. It was about keeping people's from getting their egos bruised, or keeping people from feeling less than, or if you're not qualified for a job, finding out a way to make you qualified for that job, even though you're clearly not qualified for that job. And if you are qualified for that job and you're the wrong color, sorry, we're going to have to let you go. There was another post on X. This is from the Jason D. Meister, or Meester, I don't know what it is, from a friend who applied to the FAA to become an air traffic controller. I graduated from a CTI air traffic control school and got a degree in air traffic management. As soon as I graduated, Obama canceled the education requirement and hired off. That's always smart. I always want to cancel the education requirement for something like, air traffic controller. He canceled the education requirement and hired off the street to fulfill their race and gender quotas. Like many classmates, I was never hired by the FAA after years of applying with a degree, working private ramp control at the Atlanta International Airport. After years of waiting, I gave up on being an FAA employee and went into real estate. Turns out the career change benefited me long term. I am part of the class action lawsuit which Trump mentioned today. Sad what the Democrats did here, like they've done everywhere to wreck anything they touch. Not to mention, I took out federal student loans for the degree, which was worthless in the end, thanks to liberal DEI. So, again, I don't know how white is too white to be an air traffic controller, but I guarantee I meet that criteria. If ever there's a job that, I'm sorry, sir, if they ever said to me, you're just too white for this job, I'd be like, you know what? I totally get it. I'm probably one of the whitest people you'll ever see anywhere in the entire world. But that's what the standard has been. That's what the FAA has become. That's what the entire government has become under Joe Biden. And that is something that it should never be. It should always be, as Pete Hegseth said yesterday when he was quoting President Donald Trump, colorblind and merit-based. That's truly equality. That's true equality. If you really want to set an equal standard for everybody, colorblind and merit-based. That's exactly how it goes. You know what's really interesting to me, though, too, is this whole thing yesterday with Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Kash Patel, you would think the Democrats, they would love him. He'd be like a dream. He's Indian American. You know, he fulfills some kind of DE&I requirement. No, they hate the guy. They hate the guy because he doesn't like the deep state and he's vowed to dismantle it. And the things that happened yesterday, man, in this hearing, I got to tell you, we're going to get to it here. In just a second. But I will say one last thing about this accident with the Black Hawk helicopter and what's happening. And again, it all signs point to something was up, meaning literally it was way too high. Something was up with this helicopter. And we're not sure what it was. We don't know what it is, but we do know that Donald Trump knows something, and he's trying to tell us as much as he can without telling us. He told us on Wednesday night that something was wrong. He told us yesterday something was wrong. He told us in the press conference that something was wrong. Oh, and BT Dubs, sorry, Keith, there's going to be a press briefing here in just a few minutes, and we'll probably pop in for a little bit and hear Caroline Levitt because we're big Caroline Levitt fans. And also she's going to have the latest on all this stuff. But before we get to that, Kash Patel should be a dream He should be a dream candidate. Christopher Wray is a white dude, rich old white dude, and the Democrats love him. Kash Patel is of Indian heritage, and they hate him. Doesn't make any sense to me. They're only interested in DEI when it's convenient. When if it's a MAGA DEI hire, they want nothing to do with that person. But if it's a liberal DEI hire, they're totally cool with it. Or if it's a liberal white guy, they're totally cool with it. There was a back and forth yesterday with Amy Klobuchar and Kash Patel. In fact, it's a 3-minute clip, and I'm going to play you the entire thing because, like I said, this rivals anything that happened on television. What happened in Kash Patel's FBI director Senate confirmation hearing yesterday was must-see TV or must-see internet, because that's literally where I watched it. It was a 3-minute clip where Amy Klobuchar went full Karen. She totally lost her mind. She became one of those unhinged liberal women that we see all over the place. She totally lost her mind about Kash Patel saying he wanted to shut down the FBI building. She wouldn't let him answer. Kash Patel finally got to answer. Then from a drama and it was like this dramatic back and forth. It was this, this battle of the ages. It was about passion and it was epic. And then it turned into a comedy because Chuck Grassley, the chairman, and John Kennedy from Louisiana got into a little back and forth. I'm going to play you the whole thing because this is the roller coaster of emotion that was Kash Patel's hearing yesterday.
Did you say that the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state?
Mr. Chairman, are we allowed to go an extra time?
Let's see. You get a second round. Before I call on Senator Lee.
Could he just answer the question if he said that the FBI headquarters, where they investigate cybercrime and terrorism, should be shut down and opened as a deep state?
Hey, Mr. Chair.
As a museum. Did he say that the headquarters should be shut down?
Mr. Chair.
I deserve an answer to that question. He is asking to be head of the FBI, and he said that their headquarters should be shut down.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
You got anything you want to say, Mr. Patel, before I go on to Senator Lee?
Simply this. If the best attacks on me are going to be false accusations and grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country. In every theater of war we have, I was on the ground in service of this nation. And any accusations leveled against me that I would somehow put political bias before the Constitution are grotesquely unfair. And I will have you reminded that I have been endorsed by over 300,000 law enforcement officers to become the next director of the FBI. Let's ask them.
Okay, so that, right, and we'll get, there's more, that's just half of it. So that's Amy Klobuchar losing it. Oh, he said he was going to shut down the building. He said he was going to shut it down, turn it into a museum of the deep state, which is a fantastic idea. Close the FBI building, turn it into a museum of the deep state, let everybody know how this organization has been totally weaponized by the Biden administration, by lots of administrations, and used as the strong arm of the federal government. It has been used to terrorize, political opponents and Catholics and parents and anyone else that really they disagree with, anyone else who they feel is below them or is a threat to them politically. That's basically what the FBI has become. And again, not the FBI agents on the ground, not your friends and neighbors, not the ones who work in your local FBI office who are doing the grunt work, the ones in the FBI building that Kash Patel wants to shut down. He goes, look, I am the most qualified person you have. I've lived through this. I know exactly what needs to be done to the FBI. And I have 300,000 law enforcement agents who have said, this is the guy we want leading us, which, by the way, that's a lot. That's a lot of law enforcement agents. But then Amy Klobuchar, then it goes from Amy Klobuchar to the comedy stylings of John Kennedy and Chuck Grassley.
And I am quoting his own words from September of 2024. It is his own words. It is not some conspiracy. It is what Mr. Patel actually said himself. Facts matter.
You forget that you had 3 minutes in the next round to say what you just said.
Okay, I'll say them again.
Okay. Before I call Lee.
Mr. Chair, just parliamentary inquiry, and it was on time. It wasn't disputing any of the debate, but I intend to keep to my 7 minutes, and I appreciate you keeping everyone to it. If we go over, can we have that decrement against the time in the second round?
If a member goes over,
not
that was actually 10 minutes, Mr. Chair.
I'm not sure that I want to. Sometimes it's faster to get things done here, just letting people shout and than it does to shut them up.
Mr. Chairman, you're a wise man, Mr. Chair. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Before we go to leave,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. What do you want?
I love this guy. Mr. Chairman, I'm unlike Senator Tillis. I mean, if we're going to start this, I want an extra 3 minutes.
Well,
now my friend Senator Klobuchar went 3 minutes over.
So here, what you're saying is the chairman wasn't a very good chairman, but not shutting her up. But I've gone through this before, and I think I know how to handle it and get.
I think you're a star-spangled awesome chairman. I just want to say that for the record. But if you're going to let somebody over there go 3 minutes over, I want my extra 3 minutes.
Well, let's see if it's abused by anybody else before we make that decision.
I'm just telling you, I'm going to abuse it.
And then, well, if that's the case, I'm going to abuse it. I mean, you better be ready for me because that's exactly what's going to happen. And that it wasn't the only look. There were back and forths everywhere, and we'll get to some of those here in just a minute. Josh Hawley, though, brought up a really good point, as Josh Hawley tends to do. He was on the news and he was asked about Kash Patel, and he said something about the deep state and these these senators rather, and the Democrats. And he said something that I've never heard anyone else say, but I know 100% is accurate about Kash Patel and his nomination.
You know, something that he told me, Jesse, he pledged to me that he would open the books on what you just said. He would open the books on the assassination attempts. He would open the books on the FBI's lying to the FISA court, for example, when they went and lied to get wiretaps on the President Trump the first time around. He would open the books on all of their corruption. So you better believe the Democrats are worried because they've been cheering this on for the last 4 years. They talk about enemies lists and political persecution. The FBI has been their personal plaything, at least FBI headquarters has been for the last 4 years, and they're scared to death that Patel will end it. They're not worried that he will actually persecute political opponents. They're worried he's going to stop the FBI doing that because that's what they've been doing the last 4 years.
They're not worried that he's going to persecute political opponents. They're worried he's going to stop it. They're worried that he's going to bring dignity and honor and justice back to the FBI. They're worried that he is going to stop allowing the FBI and all of its assets to be used to hurt and hinder and harm and investigate and prosecute political enemies and adversaries and protect allies at the same time. They don't want that stopped. They want it to continue, and they're afraid that he's going to stop it. He's going to take away their power. He's going to take away their toys. He's going to, these are the kids that have been sneaking into the abandoned house and skating in the empty pool, and now the cops have put up barbed wire and posted a sentry so that they can't go in anymore. That's what this is, and they are just furious about it. They don't want anyone coming in and cleaning up their snake pit. They don't want anyone coming in and unweaponizing their weapons. They worked long and hard to get the FBI exactly where it is, a tool for them to do their bidding, despite what the law and legal standards say. It's an operation for them to wield power and to strong arm people and to basically scare the heck out of people. I mean, it is all about intimidation at the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Intimidation, and that's how the Democrats like it, and they don't want anyone coming in and changing it. Kash Patel has been on the other side of that, and he says no one should ever have to have the full weight of the government led by the FBI and the President of the United States and the Department of Justice behind them, coming down on them, investigating them, making their lives a living hell, and that's what he pledges to not do. There is, like I said, going to be a briefing here it's going to start very shortly. And so we're going to watch this. We're going to watch this really quickly. Like I said, I know there's going to be an update on the crash. I know there's going to be an update on a couple of things that President Donald Trump said. So we'll hear from Caroline Leavitt at the outset. Maybe there'll be some interesting questions. I don't know that it's going to be a very long briefing. I don't actually know anything about this briefing at all, except that it's going to begin here in a few short minutes, and we'll bring it to you. Like I said, we'll pop in just to hear what's been going on. But look, there were other hearings yesterday too. And it wasn't just Kash Patel. You had Tulsi Gabbard and you had RFK Jr. and Alina Habba, who was Donald Trump's attorney and is now a part of one of his trusted advisors at the White House. She sat in on the Tulsi Gabbard hearing, and she had a couple things to say afterward again, which there's what's happening in these Senate confirmation hearings and then what the real objective is. And Alina Habba does a great job of saying why these Democrats don't like Tulsi and don't want her anywhere near this DNI position as the director of national intelligence.
I think all three should get through. I think that the problem that I've seen consistently in sitting in that hearing was that a lot of the rhetoric is about left-wing media spin. And unfortunately, those members in the Senate that were doing so were helping promulgate this divisiveness that America voted out on November 5th in a very clear mandate when President Trump won in an enormous fashion. And these are the people that he selected for a reason. For Tulsi, for instance, the narrative that they have with her is to pinpoint that she is somehow a puppet for Assad and others. And she said very clearly that was false. That is not true. I did not do that. I didn't meet with these individuals and I was not in collusion with them. But again, this is what we've seen time and time again. RFK, he was being asked tough questions about pharmaceuticals by people that were paid by pharmaceutical companies, some of them over $1.5 million and still on payroll. And they tried to say, well, you're against vaccines. His children are vaccinated. Again, false narratives. This is really, unfortunately, become more of a Broadway show than real news. And in Kash Patel's hearing, very little questions about actual FBI dealings or what he would do. He was the head of the DOD. He handled every question with grace, but the questions were more focused on social media and the J6 choir. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. There was no substance coming from the Democrat members that were asking questions.
Well, I
want the American people to be careful of that.
It's weird that she said it's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard, and then she said there was no substance coming from the Democrats. I would think it'd be bizarre if there were substance coming from the Democrats. But again, that's just me. That's just me. And she's right. There was the Kash Patel hearing, and we watched it live, and we had a lot of people commenting live, and we were live all day yesterday for hours and hours and hours. And every single question, it seemed, was about the J6 choir. Every question was about some podcast interview he did years ago, some comment he made on Truth Social. It was nothing about your qualifications. It was nothing about this, that, or the other. The questions were, do you agree with this pardon or that whatever? And he goes, my job is not to pardon anybody or question the presidential pardons. The president has carte blanche to pardon anyone that his heart desires. And if he wants to pardon all the January 6th rioters, to go for it. Kash Patel even said, I don't agree with any. There were a couple things. He's like, I don't even agree with what the president did there or what somebody said there. But I'm the FBI director and I would work for the president of the United States. One of the gotchas was when they talked about him. Would you prosecute this person or that person? And he had to remind the senators that the FBI doesn't prosecute anyone. That would be Pam Bondi, the attorney general. That the FBI is the investigative branch of the Department of Justice. They go out, they investigate, they collect evidence, they bring the evidence back to the prosecutors, and it's up to the prosecutors to put together the case and try to get a guilty verdict or an innocent, whatever it is that they're doing to prosecute somebody for. It was a really, as she said, yes, it was bizarre, but also not bizarre. The Democrats didn't make sense, which is what we expect. Let's listen in real quick to Caroline Levitt and see what she has to say today.
Good to see all of you. Happy Friday. It's great to be back with you. I want to provide an update on President Trump's actions in the wake of the catastrophic air collision that tragically claimed the lives of 67 people at Reagan National Airport on Wednesday night. Everyone in this White House continues to mourn the victims and keep their friends and families in our thoughts and prayers during this unimaginable time. First, within moments of the collision, the president and his newly appointed team were in immediate communication. The president was briefed on Wednesday evening following the crash, again on Thursday morning, and he has continued to receive updates as recovery efforts continue on the ground. The president, as you know, took time to address the nation yesterday afternoon. To deliver accountability, President Trump swiftly signed a memorandum directing an immediate assessment of the Federal Aviation Administration to ensure the federal government is maintaining the highest personnel and policy aviation safety standards. The memorandum directs the Secretary of Transportation and the FAA Administrator to immediately review all hiring decisions and changes to safety protocols made during the prior 4 years, and to take all necessary corrective actions to achieve uncompromised aviation safety. The review will include a comprehensive assessment and reversal of any deterioration in hiring standards and aviation safety standards and protocols during the previous administration. Aviation safety was addressed by President Trump before this tragic collision even took place. On his second day in office, the president signed a memorandum to immediately stop Biden DEI hiring programs and return to non-discriminatory, merit-based hiring. And in 2018, during President Trump's first term, the Department of Transportation announced it would put an end, at that time, to use the biological questionnaire that was introduced by the Obama administration, which punished skilled applicants. President Trump has long led on the issue of aviation safety, and he will continue to do so. He will continue to deliver on the promises he made to the American people at record speed. The Senate has already confirmed 8 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees, including most recently Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, as you of course know, EPA Secretary Lee Zeldin, Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, who is scheduled to be sworn in later today.
Nice.
We expect the Senate to continue quickly confirming the remainder of President Trump's well-qualified nominees in the days ahead. Earlier this week in the East Room, the president proudly signed the Laken-Riley Act into law, surrounded by Laken's loving parents and sister.
Yeah, we didn't even get to cover that.
This common-sense bipartisan law mandates the federal detention of illegal aliens who are accused of theft, burglary, assaulting a law enforcement officer, and any crime that causes death or serious bodily injury.
Make microphones great again. Let's go.
Who murdered Laken-Riley in cold blood. This was the first piece of legislation President Trump proudly signed as the 47th president of the United States, and it will guarantee that Laken did not die in vain. As Laken's mother, Allison, tearfully said during the signing event, President Trump said he would secure our borders and that he would never forget about Laken, and he hasn't. He's a man of his word, and we trust that he will fight for the American people. Those are the words of Laken's mother, and we will never forget them. So to help lock up even more criminal illegal aliens, President Trump signed a memorandum this week to detain them at Guantanamo Bay.
Woohoo!
This action will expand the Migrant Operations Center at Naval Station Guantanamo Bay to full capacity to provide critical extra detention space for high-priority criminal illegals.
Look at that.
Our brave ICE agents continue to arrest more and more of these types of individuals every day in communities across our country. And I have more updates for you. On January 27th, 2025, ICE Chicago arrested a citizen of Guatemala who has been convicted of solicitation to meet a child, disturbing, and sentenced to 24 months probation. On January 28th, 2025, ICE Atlanta arrested a citizen of South Korea who has been convicted of 9 counts of possession or control of material depicting minors in sexually explicit conduct.
Oh, I know a South Korean guy in
On
Atlanta.
January
I wonder if it's
28th,
him.
ICE New York arrested a Mexican national previously charged by the state of New York for attempted murder and possession of a weapon and assault. And on January 28th, ICE Philly arrested a citizen of Mexico who has been convicted of possession of child pornography.
ICE
Our
Philly.
message is simple. If you are a criminal, illegal alien, you will be arrested and deported. On another important matter, the nation's report card was released this week.
Oh, good.
And the news is not good.
Oh,
it showed that U.S. students had record low reading comprehension scores last year.
Oh, I did see this.
It's National School Choice Week. And in part of the president's commitment to education, he just left a roundtable in the Roosevelt Room focused on this issue with leaders from across the country. The national report card showed that 70% of 8th graders were below proficient in reading, and 40% of 4th graders did not even meet the basic reading levels. This is completely unacceptable to the president, and he continues to take aggressive actions to address this education problem in our country. He signed an executive order this week prohibiting federal funding of the indoctrination of our children, including radical gender ideology and critical race theory in the classroom. The president believes American education should focus on cultivating patriotic citizens who are ready for the workforce. And this action will help get schools back on track and defend fundamental parental rights in education. The president also signed a school choice executive order expanding educational freedom and opportunity for families. And in lighter news, but in exciting news, after announcing our briefing room changes on Wednesday, this White House has received more than 10,000 submissions from individuals across the country who are eager to join all of you. We might have to make this room a little bit bigger to do that, who want to participate in our new media seat at a future briefing. So in this seat today, we have the Ruthless podcast. They humbly started by entertaining small audiences on Capitol Hill, but after 4 years, this program has become one of the most influential podcasts in America. They previously reached #1 on the charts and earned over 25 million downloads as they deliver political news with a humorous touch. The hosts are Josh Holmes, Michael Duncan, Comfortably Smug, and the man joining us today, John Ashbrook. So with that, I will take your questions. John, please kick us off.
Thank you very much.
Oh, he gets the first question, too.
First briefing, the media went after this administration for deporting illegal immigrants they claimed were not criminals. The question is, do you think they're out of touch with Americans demanding action on our border crisis?
The media out of touch? I think the media certainly is out of touch, and I think that's proven by a number of things, John. Number one, there was a New York Times poll that was released prior to President Trump's inauguration by the New York Times, which of course is a legacy media outlet, that showed that 83% of Americans support deporting the individuals that you mentioned, illegal immigrant criminals, especially those who have committed heinous crimes in the interior of our country.
Yeah.
And I received a very actually interesting statistic on this front from ICE this week. 97% of the deportations that this administration has made thus far are of individuals who had a removal order from the previous administration, but were never removed from the interior of our country. So this shows that the previous administration was actually defying our laws, and all this administration is doing is simply following the laws, the immigration laws of this great country.
Shocker.
Thanks for the question, John. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, great.
Oh, look, you could have had a follow-up. You could have had a follow-up, dude.
If President Trump is telling us that air traffic
Oh, here comes Peter Ducey.
staffed with unqualified controllers, these DEI hires who
Come on, audio-visual guy.
then it's not safe to fly commercially, is it?
AV guy, come
the
on.
president was asked and answered this yesterday, and he believes that it is still indeed safe, and Americans should feel safe traveling our skies. With that said, two things can be true at the same time, and we certainly have seen the deterioration of federal hiring standards at the Federal Aviation Administration, and the president wants to increase those standards. He wants pilots in this country who have the great responsibility of flying American citizens by the tens of millions every single day to be chosen for that position based on their merit and their skills. And so the administration will continue to prioritize this.
Was the air traffic controller in the DCA tower on Wednesday night hired or not fired at some point because of his or her race?
That investigation is ongoing. And so when we have updates on the exact individuals who were involved in the collision, including the air traffic controller, also the pilots of the helicopter and others, we will confirm those. I don't want to confirm names from this podium today. We're not in a position to do that.
I want to know about the helicopter
I will
pilot.
say, the president has still rightfully pointed out that there has been problems with the aviation industry over the past several years. And this started under Barack Obama in 2014.
I think Peter Ducey misses KJP.
On Truth Social, the Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high by a lot. It was far above the 200-foot limit. That's not really too complicated to understand, is it? Is he suggesting a helicopter malfunction or a crew error or a crew doing this intentionally?
No, the president is simply stating what he said in that Truth Social post, which is that the helicopter was flying higher than it should have been, which is one of the reasons that led to this collision. And the other reasons for that are still being investigated, and I will let that investigation play out. Kelly.
Some of our colleagues have obtained a memo from the Defense Intelligence Agency that talks about not holding any activities or programming related to Black History Month to be in line with the President's views on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Does the President plan to have a proclamation about Black History Month? In his first term, each of the 4 years of his term, he did so and called on those in government to have programs.
We really need an audio-visual update at the White House.
Yeah, the President looks forward to signing a proclamation celebrating Black History Month. I actually spoke with our great staff secretary. It's in the works of being approved, and it's going to be ready for the President's signature to signify the beginning of that tomorrow.
If an agency is calling off those kinds of activities in an attempt to be in alignment with the President's views on DEI and other things, should they adjust that now and have those programs and make those celebrations however they see fit in the office?
The President is leading here at the White House, and I'll leave
okay.
it to the proclamation that he will sign very soon.
Yeah, read the
Mary,
proclamation, lady.
Thanks for having us. So I wanted to follow up on the gender executive orders that you mentioned. First of all, we know that President Trump has taken a bunch of steps to protect children from irreversible transgender procedures. Is he interested in backing congressional legislation on this point? And does the Trump administration have interest in investigating doctors who perform these irreversible procedures on kids, such as a double mastectomy on a minor girl?
Well, the President has already taken a very strong stance on this issue this week with the signing of his executive order, a few executive orders in this space. First, he made it the official policy of the federal government that there are only two sexes, male and female, and we have directed all federal agencies to comply with that policy. As for congressional legislation to support the President's agenda in this space, and certainly ending the mutilation of young children, the chemical castration of young children, which is a barbaric practice that the vast majority of Americans do not support for young minor children. Certainly the President would support Congress's efforts, as he has already made that very clear this week. Jennifer.
On Rick Grinnell's trip to Venezuela to meet with Nicolas Maduro, is there anything you can share on timing on that, what his agenda is, what the mission of that trip is?
Yes, so I can confirm that Rick Grinnell is in Venezuela today. I can confirm that Rick Grinnell is going to Venezuela, or is in Venezuela, with two immediate directives from the President of the United States. Number one, Rick Grinnell has been instructed to identify a place and ensure that repatriation flights of Tren de Aragua members, Venezuelan nationals who have broken our nation's laws, will land in Venezuela. As I said at this podium a few days ago, we expect every nation on this planet to cooperate with the repatriation of our citizens.
Yeah.
And so Rick Grinnell is in Venezuela to ensure that can continue. And number two, Rick Grinnell is in Venezuela to ensure that all U.S. detainees in Venezuela are returned home. That's his mission, and I will provide a readout after this trip.
Fernandez, can you tell us if anyone has approached the White House or the President about a pardon or a commutation?
I have not been part of those discussions. If they have, I am not sure if they have, but I won't speculate on potential pardons that may or may not happen. To my awareness, the answer is no. Justin.
Hey, friends at Reuters are reporting that the President has made a decision on the Canada and Mexico tariffs, but that they won't actually be implemented until March 1st. I was wondering if you could confirm that and talk through some of the President's thinking.
I saw that report, and it is false. I was just with the President in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago, continues. The President will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the President.
By the way,
last night he was planning to discuss whether...
Oh my God. The idea of the press secretary speaking directly to the President, by the way, that's how it's supposed to work, but Karine Jean-Pierre was never allowed to do that with Joe Biden.
I don't have an update or readout for you on the exemptions, but those tariffs will be for public consumption in about 24 hours tomorrow, so you can read them then. Stephen Nelson.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I have three questions, if that's all right. I'd like to ask you about press freedom and then about two economic matters.
Sure.
On press freedom, on Tuesday you announced plans to roll back the more restrictive press badge policy of the Biden White House.
Golly,
But
this
there's
is...
different anti-press freedom policy.
Okay, the guy with the microphone. You're doing it wrong. I see you there. I see you up front. You're doing it wrong. You can't stand there in front of the speakers with the mic. You got to go and hand it to the guy.
Trump term were open to all journalists.
This is horrible. Who is this guy?
Limited the diversity of reporters present.
I'm going to have to dip away if they don't fix this. Sir, you got to fix the microphone. You know what? I want a press credential just so I can go in there and show these people how to operate their audio equipment.
That my team and I have had to unravel over the past 2 weeks that were implemented by the previous White House and in particular the previous press shop here. And so I can commit to a greater access and transparency, which I believe we already have by ensuring that the 440 journalists whose credentials were revoked will be reinstalled. They will get their credentials if they wish to. We've also, of course, opened up a new seat to new media. And as far as open press events here at the White House, if we tell you it's open press, it's open press.
So just to confirm, this pre-screening thing is something you're aware of and you'll work to undo to the maximum extent possible.
When we say something is open press, it will mean it's open press.
Economic matters, and I can just ask them both at once for
Sure.
you. In New York City, Governor Hochul's congestion pricing went into effect this month. Vehicles that drive through parts of Manhattan have to pay a $9 toll. President Trump has made clear his opposition. He said that it's, quote, the most regressive tax known to womankind. Will the administration be trying to block this? And the second question is, millions and maybe tens of millions of Americans who voted for President Trump were excited about his plans to do away with taxes on tips.
This guy's very nervous,
and
it
Social
seems.
Security benefits, but there's uncertainty about the timing of this. So can you clarify for them when this is going to happen? And does President Trump want this to be in the first, all three of those in the first batch of legislation early this year?
Well, to answer your question in one swoop, I will say that President Trump is committed to lowering taxes for Americans, cutting taxes for Americans. As for congestion pricing in New York, I do know that the president spoke with Governor Hochul about that. I don't have any, actions, so to speak, to read out for you on that issue today. Number two, when it comes to no taxes on tips and Social Security, the president has made it very clear to our allies on Capitol Hill that is a critical piece of this reconciliation package, and he expects that his tax cuts from 2017, which put a lot more money back into the American people's pockets, those must be implemented, and no tax on tips. The president is intent on delivering on that promise, and he will get it done.
And overtime also as part of reconciliation?
Yes. Sure.
Thanks,
There you
Caroline.
go.
Can you guarantee that those tariffs won't increase prices for Americans, including at the gas pump and the grocery store?
I think Americans who are concerned about increased prices should look at what President Trump did in his first term. He effectively implemented tariffs, and the average inflation rate during the first Trump administration was 1.9%. In fact, when President Trump left office, it was 1.4%. So President Trump is going to do everything he possibly can to cut the inflation crisis that the previous administration imposed on the American people, and he will continue to effectively utilize tariffs.
If those tariffs do increase prices for Americans, will the administration reverse them?
That's a hypothetical question, and the president is intent on ensuring that he effectively implements tariffs while cutting inflation and costs for the American people. And, the media has this way of just looking at everything in a microscope rather than looking at the whole of government economic approach that this president is taking. He will effectively implement tariffs. He's also, as I just answered Prince Stephen's question, committed to tax cuts. He's also clearly committed, as evidenced by his executive orders, to unleashing the might of our energy industry, which we know will eventually drive down inflation. And all the other economic measures that this president has made will have a Trump incoming economic boom, just like we saw in our first term.
And has the White House
Sure.
found any?
Fox Business, yes. Go ahead.
Keep that, Caroline.
You're welcome.
Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, said today that if the U.S. imposes tariffs, he will respond and he will not relent until the tariffs are removed. Are we seeing the start of a trade war with Canada?
I don't think so. I think the president is going to implement those tariffs tomorrow, and he will respond to Mr. Trudeau's comments in due time, I am sure.
What type of things have to happen? What does the administration need to see in order to avoid those tariffs?
Well, the tariffs are incoming tomorrow on Canada, and the reason for that is because both Canada and Mexico have allowed an unprecedented invasion of illegal fentanyl that is killing American citizens and also illegal immigrants into our country. In fact, I have more language for you right here. Canada, Mexico, and China, which, as I mentioned, President Trump will implement a 10% tariff on China, have all enabled illegal drugs to pour into America. The amount of fentanyl that has been seized at the southern border in the last 2 years alone has the potential to kill tens of millions of Americans. And so the president is intent on doing this. And I think Justin Trudeau would be wise to talk to President Trump directly before pushing outlandish comments like that to the media.
If I may, one more.
Yes, Lindsay.
Go back to the plane crash for one. If I can go back to the plane crash for just 1 second.
You're interrupting your colleague, but sure.
Sorry, I thought you called on me.
I called on Lindsay.
The president this morning said the Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high. I'm wondering if he's basing that on what he learned from investigators, and if you could offer a little bit more of a window into how he is keeping abreast of this investigation.
Sure.
Is the NTSB briefing him separately? Is he meeting in the Situation Room? You just sort of offer a window into that.
Yeah, the president based that statement on truth, because it is truth and it's fact, and it was relayed to him by the authorities who are overseeing the investigation into this horrific plane collision.
That's a
and
foreign
the president,
concept
as
to
I
the
said
press.
in my opening remarks, continues to be briefed on the collision by everybody across his cabinet, the Secretary of Transportation, the Secretary of Defense, the NTSB, who the commissioner there was in the Oval Office with him yesterday. Lindsay. Lindsay, go ahead. Lindsay, go ahead. Thank you.
In recent days, the CIA actually revealed that they do also believe that COVID-19 was from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. How is the president planning on responding to this additional intel from the CIA, and will it impact how he responds to them with tariffs?
Yeah, kudos to John Ratcliffe for revealing that truth and that fact to the American people. Many years too late, the Biden administration had a chance to let the American people know the truth about that, and for some reason, they chose not to. I also would just like to point out that several years ago, when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. It took many years for it to come out, but the president was right in this instance again. Sure.
Caroline, thank you. I wanted to ask about Secretary Rubio's trip to Panama first. Sure. What did the conversations look like with President Trump on that? The president of Panama says it is, quote, impossible to negotiate over the canal. So what are you expecting from this visit?
So I have not been present for Secretary Rubio's conversations with President Trump about the Panama Canal. I have been present for President Trump's own thoughts on the Panama Canal, and you've all seen them as well in his public statements that he has shown. He believes it's unacceptable that the canal is essentially run by the Chinese Communist Party. If you look at both ends of the canal, massive Chinese Communist Party linked companies run the canal. That's unfair to the American people, many of whom lost their lives many years ago building this canal. The American taxpayers are paying millions of dollars for the canal, and the president believes it's in our national interest as a nation for Secretary Rubio to go there and begin these discussions, and that's exactly why he's doing that. Sure.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Is the United States in the process of pulling out of Syria militarily? Because the president wanted to do that in his first term as well, and he had a lot of pushback from the Pentagon and Congress. And based on what he said yesterday, is he considering doing that in a short time?
The president was asked and answered this question yesterday, and he, as the commander-in-chief of the United States military, reserves the right to review troop deployments overseas at any point in time.
Is that a topic right now?
Yes.
Thank you. Two questions. So we now know that the staffing was not normal at the air traffic tower, and so with the government freezing the hiring of new federal workers and offering
She's asking about the staffing at the FAA tower.
More incidents of different kinds.
Staffing at the FAA tower on Wednesday.
Well, the president is intent on ensuring that we are increasing staffing at these agencies, and that's why he signed a very strong executive order on his second day in office, immediately terminating DEI hiring practices at the FAA. He also, following the tragic crash, as you all know, in the Oval Office yesterday, signed a memorandum directing an immediate assessment of the FAA to ensure the federal government is maintaining the highest personnel and aviation safety standards. And I would also just say there's a cultural piece to this as well. If you are an American who has spent many years studying aviation, and you graduate from school and you're an air traffic controller based on skill and merit, and then you apply for a job and you're forced to fill out a biographical questionnaire asking you the color of your skin and asking you where you're from in details that aren't relevant at all to the job description, I think that deteriorates the morale of people in this industry.
I
And if
agree.
you talk to people in this industry, they'll tell you that. In fact, many of them filed a lawsuit against the FAA a couple of years ago under Joe Biden's administration because they were denied positions because of this DEI hiring practice that was putting identity politics over merit and skills. That's unacceptable. And I think just to put a fine point on this, because this is the third or fourth question I've answered on this subject, when you are flying on an airplane with your loved ones, which every one of us in this room has, do you pray that your plane lands safely and gets you to your destination, or do you pray that the pilot has a certain skin color? I think we all know the answer to that question, and as President Trump said yesterday, it's common sense. Rob Crilly.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on that last question. Has there been any sort of assurance from the FAA that they will immediately improve staffing levels, given the reports of not normal staffing levels on Wednesday?
Oh, absolutely. You had Secretary Duffy here yesterday at the White House at this podium saying that he is on it, and we can all trust that he definitely will be. John Decker.
Thanks a lot, Carol. You called on me, right?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much.
As long as your name's still John Decker.
It is, absolutely. Thank you. The president's meeting today with the founder and CEO of NVIDIA. What is that meeting concerning, and who sought that meeting?
I don't have details on this. It's a private meeting. It will take place at 2:30 p.m. I'll try to get there in time, and I can let you know after. How's that?
On Guantanamo Bay, can you give more details about setting up that detention facility at Gitmo? How will that come about? What's the timing in terms of standing it up? And of course, this has happened before during the Clinton administration.
Yeah, that's right.
Detainees of Cuban and Haitian descent were both detained at Guantanamo. Are you looking at that model in setting up this detention facility?
Secretary Hegseth, I believe, was on television this morning answering this question, and he said that the Department of Defense is already on it. He has directed his agency to ensure that Gitmo is increasing their capacity for beds, and that's exactly what President Trump's executive order did. It directed Secretary Hegseth and also Secretary Noem to expand the Migrant Operations Center at the Naval Station to provide for this extra detention space. And as Secretary Hegseth confirmed this morning, that operation is underway. Sure.
Caroline, on the tariffs, can you clarify whether those will actually be going into effect tomorrow, or
Yes.
whether there might be some lead time?
Yes.
And are those, they will be going into effect?
Correct.
And are those meant to be in place long term, or is there a scenario in which Canada, Mexico, and China can offer concessions and then they would be removed?
At this point, the president has made it very clear those tariffs are going to be implemented and in effect. If the president at any time decides to roll back those tariffs, I'll leave it to him to make that decision. But starting tomorrow, those tariffs will be in place. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline.
Yes.
Can you confirm a report by our friends at the Daily Mail that the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is going to be visiting the White House in February? And also, if I may, do you have any more details on Netanyahu's visit here next week?
Sure. I have not seen that report about the Prime Minister. I can go check back with our friends at the National Security Council and get back to you on that. I can confirm that Prime Minister Netanyahu will be here on Tuesday, February 4th, for a working meeting and visit with the President. And I'm sure you will all be here, very excited to cover that visit. Sure. Daniel.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome.
Back on the Guantanamo Bay subject, specifically, obviously, why does the president feel like that's the best location or a good location to make sure that Americans are safe from violent, illegal migrant crime?
Well, it's a really good question, and the memorandum that he signed, the order that he signed, builds on his previous executive actions, obviously, to secure our southern border and deport illegal criminals from the interior of our country. We know that we have an issue with detention space here in the interior, which is a big reason why Congress needs to pass this reconciliation package as quickly as possible to ensure that DHS and ICE have the funding they need to detain these individuals that the administration is very swiftly rounding up and deporting, arresting and deporting these illegal immigrant criminals. And so the president feels it's an appropriate place. Taxpayers are already funding it. The space is there. Why not use it? And the Secretary of Defense, as I said, is working on that as we speak. Sure. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me here answering a question. So I want to talk more about the success that ICE is having finding these violent criminal aliens, some of them being
All right.
sexual predators.
I'm going to pull away from this because I don't
My
know.
friend Ben Burkholm reports.
And then, look, she's doing a great job. She's answering a lot of questions. We're getting a lot of information, and it's really stellar, and it's really exciting again to see a press secretary who is knowledgeable, who is polite, who doesn't take any flack, who knows what they're talking about, who actually talks to the president, and that's the biggest issue. Well, there were so many issues. There were a lot of issues I had with Karine Jean-Pierre, but the biggest issue was she never had one-on-one time with the president. And when you're the spokesperson for the president, when your job is to speak for the president, you need to speak to the president. And Karine Jean-Pierre on several occasions was asked, have you spoken with the president? Did the president tell you that? What did the president say to you? And she always repeatedly said, I haven't spoken to the president. I mean, she couldn't give an honest opinion or an honest outlook on what President Biden was thinking because A, we don't think he was thinking anything. And B, she never actually got to communicate with him. They kept Joe Biden far away from the staff. And this was for plausible deniability. If Karine Jean-Pierre went and spoke to Joe Biden and he blubbered on about something and she was asked about it, I mean, she needed plausible deniability. So Joe Biden's staff was kept away from him, which is not how it's supposed to go when you're the president of the United States and you have a press secretary. A press secretary who's supposed to be, delivering your message to the people. I did want to share one thing because there was a question that Kristi Noem was asked a question about Guantanamo Bay and having Guantanamo Bay as accessible so that we can have detainees there and we can use it for these violent criminals and get them out of the country and put them there while they're being processed and whatnot is a fantastic asset. And yes, we've used it before for criminal aliens. We've used it before for terrorists. We've used it several times. There was some back and forth with the whole waterboarding thing, which apparently people thought was a bad thing. So they almost shut it down. But Kristi Noem was asked about it and she's like, yeah, we're almost ready, man. It's almost there.
How soon will Gitmo be ready? We kind of floated this idea a couple of nights ago because obviously they had all the Haitian refugees there. But how soon will the facility be ready to take in these illegals?
It won't take very long at all. We already have some dangerous criminals there that are illegal aliens. And so the facilities can be stood up quite quickly. They're soft-sided. And we have the space. We just got to get to work.
Yeah, just got to get to work. Just got to get it done, and they will get it done. And pretty soon that'll be another outlet for us to house illegal immigrants who have committed crimes, are here illegally, and we don't want to be here anymore. More on that coming up. But first, though, ladies and gentlemen. So thrilled to have back the CEO of Colonial Metals Group, our good friend Paul Stone, who's in his office in his velvety throne. And you're just 4 miles from these wildfires in California, is that right?
Right now, I am. Yes, we have a presence in California, Los Angeles, West Side, if you will, headquartered in Florida, of course. Florida Corporation.
Of course, yeah. Are they burnt? Like, do you see the smoke? Can you smell it? Is it visible from where you are? Are you in any danger?
I wasn't here during the main burn there in Palisades and Altadena, but there was a fire that started Tuesday, I think it was, the Hearst fire, and you could see hills that long ago used to be mountains, the Santa Monica Mountains. Yeah, you could see big plume of smoke. Wow. Off in the distance. It's creepy stuff.
And it is, well, now, President Trump was just there. He came in and he laid down the law and he signed some executive orders. And from your take, like, what is going on there with, I mean, it's all leadership, right? This could have been avoided. Is that 100% true?
Well, so yeah, this is a great analogy to uncover and cause a comparison from the two different worlds that we're actually living in. Yeah. So true, in the private practice, right? Let's say Exxon started the Palisades a long time ago, right? And everyone pretty much who worked there or lived there worked for Exxon. There were old communities that were set up this way. And so Exxon would be like, well, we kind of are in this, there's oil here, but then there's this danger of fire. So we're going to make sure that we stage resources. We might have fire trucks just sitting in mothballs and big tankers full of water just sitting in warehouses in case we need it. Right. And should a fire start in the Palisades and it burns, 5-10 homes, boom, they're going to throw so many resources at it so fast it doesn't spread, doesn't grow. The government can't operate that way because it's not a for-profit business. So it isn't really forced to look down the road at how its viability, how its existence could be threatened one day. Yeah. We look at companies that have come and gone. Polaroid owned the camera space. If they could have just figured out how to put a lens in a phone and patented that, on the back of every smartphone.
Yeah. No,
so when we look at businesses can miss it too, but government always does. My dad, who was a nuclear engineer in the government, he worked for Rickover, nuclear power plants and submarines. And he had a saying, he said, the government never has enough money to do it right, but they always have enough to do it over.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Yep. So.
And it is really interesting too, because when you look at the different styles of government, because Gavin Newsom, the Delta Smelt, all of the environmental applications, all of the regulations he put on water control and environmentalists, so that it really created this system where, oh yeah, you're saving some of the animals, you're saving the environment, but you're destroying the homes of all the people who pay the taxes, and now they're going to leave anyway, and you're not going to have all that tax money.
And here's another version to this. This management leadership crisis. In my gut, I think any governor wants to not be caught, with their pants down in a crisis like this, but it's his Congress, it's his legislature that screams for all of these protections and red tape and environmental impact studies that go on forever. When the people voted, we said, build more reservoirs. And they never built any because they don't listen to the people.
Right.
Newsom can't. And that happens in so many ways. You think about Trump and Doge and they want to cut $2 trillion from the budget. Okay, great. You and I are both old enough to remember, and many of your listeners may be, I think it was in the 90s, the base closure thing started up.
Yeah.
Like, these Cold War bases, we don't need them anymore. We could close a couple hundred of them. And everyone's like, everyone in Congress is like, let's save some money. Just, don't close the bases in my state.
Right.
Close the bases in everyone else, but not in my state.
Right.
And you had, all these senators from 50 different states and Congress people saying, just not in my state. And so, it's a grueling effort to consider that a government that needs $7 trillion a year in budget would suddenly just send a bill to the White House that only had, a budget for $5 trillion. You just think about how government can't ever have enough money to do it right. It can't have enough vision to do it right. It can't pre-plan. I'm sure Newsom would rather spend $30 billion over the last 10 years staging resources around the hot spots in California that are potentially, subject to wildfires. They don't have the money to ever do anything like that. When the pandemic hit, it's like, well, how many ivermectin kits do we have? 1,000.
Right.
We're never prepared because government leadership can't ever operate like you and I have to operate here on Main Street, or how businesses have to operate to stay viable.
And it's interesting because there are businesses that have. There was that famous story about the guy that owns the shopping mall, the outdoor shopping center, and he had his own private fire department. He had the tanker trucks, and it's like the only thing left standing in the Palisades because he privatized his own emergency response team. And that's something that, points out exactly what you're talking about. If we ran the government more like a corporation, we'd have more resources to protect our corporation, but we don't. So we just have to rebuild, which Donald Trump is doing by getting rid of federal regulations, which is great. The other really interesting thing that came out about this, and the other really interesting thing I think that everybody starts to realize, is when you have a disaster, whether it's in North Carolina or whether it's in California, it's not something that it shouldn't take this long. And the government, for whatever reason, the bigger it gets, the slower it gets. And now I think what we're starting to see is that Donald Trump is cutting through all of that and kind of pulling the curtain back to show everybody the only reason it's slow is because of the leadership involved.
Yeah, and the design of it too. You have these three branches. If you had a monarchy and you had you could just keep reelecting a great king, a fabulous person who attracted bright-minded and dynamic thinkers into his or her camp. And wasn't an egomaniac, like a Hitler or some crazy Stalin or Saddam Hussein, but someone who ingratiated themselves into public discourse, arguing for and against things. You could really have something run efficiently. It's just the framers could never trust that design, so they had to break the power up with the judicial and the legislature. Don't mean to lecture.
No, we understand.
It can't be. What was the secret recipe? Let me remind us, is that you had 50 presidents.
Right.
You had 50 governors with more power than the federal government. And so when the federal government created income tax for itself, my understanding is the Lincoln invented income tax on federal properties and federal entities, workers, to give himself a financial edge over the South, and put a drop dead date on that for 2 years. And then they renewed it and they renewed it. And then it's just kept on going forever. So our federal government, and then when Nixon ended the gold standard, he hooked the federal government up to its own financial power supply. You're looking at Bill Gates once he bought 3 Mile Island. You're looking at other groups now that want their own power supply for their AI efforts, which it just scares the hell out of me. I mean, it's not going to be too long before I just move to the hills somewhere. I swear to God, I'm just not going to be a part of that craziness. That's not what life here is on Earth, is to be managed by software.
Right.
We have this so backwards, so we can sit around in that, like the movie Up, where we float around in lazy boys up above the planet and we just get served beverages and watch Netflix all day. That's not human existence. That's not human life. So anyway, not to go crazy off
Wait, that was Wall-E. You're talking about Wall-E, where they're all sitting in the...
Yeah,
Wall-E. I was like, wait a minute.
What
part? Up was the balloons,
Wall-E.
right? Yeah, no, I mean, look, and you're right about that. But at the same time, I mean, so let's talk about AI since you brought it up, because just today there was this whole back and forth about China creating a cheaper AI. Donald Trump announced right out of the gate, like day 2, he brought in Masayoshi Sasumi, he brought in Larry Ellison, he brought in Sam Altman, and he goes, they're going to invest $500 billion. And then Saudi Arabia is going to come in and they're going to bring in another 600. He's got over $1 trillion of investment. Now, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is it something we should be worried about? Is it going to legitimately happen? I mean, where do you stand on that?
So I'm just all for Trump doing whatever he can to make America was,
right.
Make it great by restoring it to its principles and its limits. Financially, the two most powerful emotion-generating things in human existence that would generate emotions, like cattle prods of electricity shocking you, would be anything around love or money. Mm-hmm. And when you look at what AI does, is it literally replaces workers. I know they say it's just going to create more work. It's not. It's not. It's all. I clipped an article out of. I wish I had it prepared for it. Sorry, I don't. That literally states that people are challenging Musk's plan to replace government workers with AI. Now, you could be like, yeah, shrink the government. But see, corporate-wise, they're looking for profits, and that doesn't stay limited to the government. AI literally will replace anything that you can automate. Fast food restaurants, delivery truck drivers, construction workers. How much money does a construction company spend on screwed up projects because someone got drunk and cut wrong on a Monday because they partied all weekend or fell and died? You have to pay out millions in wrongful death suits, the insurance, the labor, all the labor insurance, all that stuff goes away the minute, an AI-driven vehicle would never speed. It would never reach down because it's dropped its Bic lighter and it causes an accident. So this is the intention. It's to replace the highest cost most corporations all have, or liability, which is human workers. It is to replace workers. I'm just, not to get nuts, but I was at a Christmas party, December of 2018. There was a gentleman there who had an elite position in the world. I don't want to get too descriptive, but he a very good connection, old-time connection of his in the government, was tasked with researching what will economic life be for the world over the next 7 years, this is 2018, with 25% of our workforce unemployed. And when you look at shadowstats.com, you look at the old-fashioned ways of counting unemployment, that's what it shows. We are at 25% unemployment. Hence all the money printing, because the economic activity is no longer coming sustainable enough from boots on the ground in the economy making stuff. We're just in the economy spending money on stuff. And that's why our debt it's a huge contributor to our debt being at $36 trillion, and it isn't going to stop because automation continues to replace jobs. And the stuff we make goes overseas to China because the corporations are always after one thing. Every corporation should be. We needed to count on our government to say, no. There's a frickin' constitution here. You're not making pharmaceuticals in China. You're not making steel in China. You're not making roofing shingles, and our lumber isn't going to be milled in China. We're not going to offshore any of this stuff. We're going to continue to make stuff here. We're not going to us and say, oh, but we'll save the American consumer money. They'll pay $6 for a set of kitchen towels instead of $20. Okay, then let's kitchen towels. I know the kitchen towels made in America, you probably used them for 20 years or 10 years before you threw them away.
Right.
The stuff you chainsaws, you screws, nuts and bolts you get made in China, they don't even match up, or you throw it away in a few years. And so it was incumbent upon the leadership of our nation to set limits and honor them forever and never let those limits bend. So when you look at AI and you look at automation, it is there like a corporation is supposed to do, cut costs and raise money, be as profitable as it can be. So I don't even fault the corporations necessarily for asking for this stuff. Can we replace American workers with Chinese workers? Can we eventually replace anything we can automate here in America? Because I can't have my Burger King, burgers made in China and FedExed here. We need to make those here. So we at least make fast food here. And how can we automate those and reduce those costs? It's going to kill jobs. So eventually, if you're in an economy, I'll shut up with this, that's driven 70% of our economic life every day is driven by you and I spending money.
Right.
If we don't have jobs, then what money are we spending? How much money does AI spend in the economy? None. And it wouldn't be a corporate interest, wasn't more efficient than the manual labor workforce. So if it was like, well, we're just going to take all these Burger King workers or any fast food, I don't mean to pick on anybody.
Right.
Any fast food worker, any bank teller, financial industry, there's a lot of stuff that can be automated. If we're going to automate that and it costs us just as much as having the humans, we'll keep the humans. It's obviously going to cost less to the corporation.
But what happens?
Each individual massive corporation can improve its bottom line,
right.
But eventually there's no consumers.
Right, but if and there's no one to come in and buy the burgers, so eventually there's going to be no profits.
No, so the government would have to print more, and we would be an epic welfare state, utterly controlled by a central bank issued cryptocurrency. And if you think that isn't coming, wake up. The dollar's worth 3 cents. Eventually it's worth 1. Eventually it's worth half a penny. They're going to change the currency mathematically. I'm not calling out my crystal ball's predictions. I'm saying this is what happens in countries. Europe gave up all of its currencies for the euro.
Right.
We gave up our currency, was once gold, for the paper, and then it was backed by gold. And then we gave up the whole gold part to it, and now paper's just money. And now it's just issued onto an Excel spreadsheet, and out into the world it goes. It's just ridiculous. They have to retread these financial tires. Do you understand what hyperinflation would look like if the dollar's worth 1/10 of a penny? It wouldn't be worth the effort to bend down and pick up a stack of hundreds off the sidewalk. This stuff pisses me off, and I'm bringing it up a little feistier now because Trump can do everything Trump can do.
Right.
But everyone also makes mistakes when they're messing around with stuff that's never been done before. Cryptocurrency, AI, none of this stuff's been done before. But if you look at the trajectory of man managing finances of a country, there is no government that has a good track record. The people make the country great, and some countries just shine a hell of a lot brighter than others for a while. But it's the governments that grow and preside over that country's ruin. The dollar's worth 3 cents. It took $36 trillion for you and I to be able to communicate today so that there's electricity. That's literal. 36 trillion, or we are wondering what the hell we're going to be eating today. That can't be stopped. These bills keep getting bigger. The source of them isn't going away.
All right, so what happened? I mean, if there's no way to stop it, we're just all barreling toward this economic ruin, or there's a way to stop it?
Beautiful question.
Right.
And this is where I just want. The world governments owe $303 trillion. They've had to print, world governments, $303 trillion for their electrical grids, essentially, to work tomorrow. So that has a drop dead date. It has to, mathematically speaking, it does.
Okay.
And if you got 80 years here on average, the question to solving this is, how do you individually want to spend your 80 years circling this massive flame in the sky?
Right.
How do you want to spend them? In the commercial gerbil wheel, the commerce gerbil wheel, where you really don't ever make enough to feel at peace, where you really don't ever you live a life where you're riddled in debt. Most of Americans couldn't spend $1,000 to fix their transmission if they got jammed up with that bill, that cost. How are you going to get to work? And a lot of the transmissions either get you to work or they are making work possible because it's a trannies in a pickup truck. So it's choice making by the individual. There is no army that can storm the gates and get the money printing to stop. If the money printing did stop, we would then be in that situation. I'm all for working our way back towards a reality, my first thing would be nothing's made in China. All American corporations have 1 year to quit making anything in China, figure out a way to make it here or go away. That's enough. No more anything made in China. Nothing. And then you start looking at other countries that are impacting our workforce here, like India and Mexico. You know, like John Deere's stock's up, and I'm not a financial advisor, but just a few months ago, they closed a bunch of the last remaining places in America where they make stuff here.
Yeah.
Harley Davidson, John Deere.
Two of the most American companies we've had in our history. All right. So Paul Stone, by the way, let me get back here. CEO of Colonial Metals Group. Let me ask you, since you brought this up too, because there's a lot of excitement and there's a lot of talk about these meme coins, which is kind of I like the look on your face already. I mean, Donald Trump made a lot of people a lot of money quickly with meme coins. We should also say a lot of people lost a lot of money quickly with meme coins, but that seems to be something that is not going away either. And every celebrity, right, if they're not already, they will be soon planning some kind of cryptocurrency, which I imagine you're not a fan of either.
Well, I'm a fan of invention. It is natural for man to be able to fly.
Right.
To seek that, to seek overcoming every obstacle, whether it's, winning a football game, a baseball game, a swim meet, a track meet, solving a riddle, winning at chess, just anything at all, learning an instrument. We are absolutely driven innately to overcome stuff. And that actually is the human experience.
Sure.
Where our Achilles heel is the foresight and discipline to not be doing things that actually turns around and harms the herd. So when we look at the invention of blockchain, if it's even from the planet Earth, Satoshi Yakashima, this mysterious. I just don't know how many people could invent something so profound and not want to take credit for it. But and be out directing and managing the implementation and utilization of it if he or she could. So anyway, if it's even from this planet, it lives in the internet. Like you solve these high complex equations to create a Bitcoin.
Right.
A currency to me means I can go shopping with it. It means I don't have to turn it into another currency to go use it. So I can't go shopping at Walmart with stock in Walmart, and I can't go shopping, to my knowledge, at Walmart with Bitcoin,
Not
or
yet,
Ethereum,
though.
or Dogecoin, or any of these coins, right?
Right.
So how is it a currency? What is it? What is it? And the invention's amazing. Blockchain is supposedly completely unhackable until there's supercomputing, which China is spending. Like if you look at football, you win when you go where the defense isn't. And
Right.
obviously, don't turn the ball over. My Washington Commanders, who are finally relevant.
Don't well, until they lost by 51. It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Hey, it was a miracle they were even there.
Yeah, that is true.
So, the cardiac commanders finally suffered their own cardiac.
Okay, but listen, you're saying that if it's not a currency if you can't go to Walmart and use it, but you can't walk into Walmart with gold or silver.
No, you're right. But here's the deal.
But but gold and silver, that's a currency.
It just spent, thousands of years with that position in our lives.
Right.
Only for the last 54 years since Nixon has global financial systems worked without a real element involved with their currency. Nixon ended that. My book will be coming out about that at some point, probably March, April, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
It is finished. It's completely done. It's with the publisher, so it's in those final steps. But what it will just show, I don't want to get too much into that right now, but the point of what we're saying is, yes, if, though, everything else were to capitulate, the dollar is exhausted, and everything the dollar supports is exhausted, I know what gold and silver has done in the past to say I still have wealth.
Right.
I don't know what a cryptocurrency I can't use anywhere will be worth.
That's true.
I don't know who's going to be able to take that. So I know if the financial world, if we're out on this epic sheet of financial ice that we're also melting at the same time we're growing out onto it and depending on it more and more every day, when it melts and everything on top of it falls through, I don't know how digital currencies work. I just know that life would become very localized. Groceries come on an average 1,200 miles away. So I would be moving to the source of where food is because it's the one thing I can't store years and years and years of, but I could store thousands of years of wealth or hundreds of years of wealth. But that wealth is in the dollar. So when the dollar goes away, it's hard work, calluses, shovels and picks.
We're all moving to
and
Iowa.
bullets and gold and silver.
And we're all eating corn.
Oh, you know, it's just, it's a shot.
Yeah.
You got to be outside. It's like Washington can't fix itself because Washington is inside Washington. So when a new coach with a new perspective and a new owner to the Washington Commanders, the old owner was so terrible. When a whole new outside entity comes and gets to manage everything, not just futz with stuff that's already in existence. Like if the whole Congress changed and the whole White House changed and all the leadership of all the agencies changed to support living in reality, then Washington wouldn't be Washington anymore. But when you just kind of fire a coach here or a coordinator there, or you're stuck with the same quarterback that's not so good, or, you know, just if you can't change everything, then not everything can change.
Yeah. No, that is true.
And so I don't see how Washington ever fixes this problem because the problems come from Washington. And Trump might be there for a few years, but is there anyone that could really come after him, like him, to replace him?
That's the question.
I think it's a unique.
That is the question. Yeah, having 4 years of Donald Trump is great for 4 years, but that could instantly revert if we get the wrong person back in 2028. Paul Stone, the CEO of Colonial Metals Group, who is fired up and as you can tell, very well versed with everything economical, where the country is, where it's going, how to protect yourself, and offers a free gold guide for your gold investments. And what there's like an up to a $7,500 silver. What if you invest in an IRA, you can get up to $7,500 in silver? Is that true?
Silver on the house. Yep. Mm-hmm. It equates to 1% essentially of what you decide to protect. And we aren't here to convince anyone or scare anyone to do anything. I get fired because I'm pissed off about the in the Constitution it says pursuit of happiness.
Correct.
The government to me is ruining the pursuit of happiness for at least 70% of the Americans that live here. That sickens me. It pisses me off. It never needed to happen. And it was the betrayal of the damn document. Look, if you're going to live here, there's a document that came before you, and you honor the document. And you don't make room and ways to bend it and say, oh, well, they wouldn't have written it that way if they're alive today. You get America designed to be in America because of that document. And you change it, you ignore it, you betray it, then you don't get to continue to have an America. It just stays titled in that name, but it doesn't look like the place it was set up to be, which was against centralized power, which was against any massive power source getting to lord over and oppress and make choices for its people. The people didn't choose. So it makes me mad that here we are today, though, seemingly at the end of the run. $303 trillion the world owes itself. That's how badly governments mismanage things. We didn't cause those problems. Their silly ideas did. And we didn't ask them to solve a lot of these problems. And prohibition. So many things that they decided to do without our input that caused horrific outcomes.
Don't be like government. Don't mismanage your money. Get your free gold guide at freegoldguide.com/KAYE. Paul Stone, CEO, Colonial Metals Group. Hey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me ramble.
Absolutely. Oh, if anyone who wants to rant, you've come to the right place for ranting. I'll tell you, I get mesmerized when that guy starts yelling. I just let him yell. I'm just like, that's amazing. Yell more. Yell more. Anyway, that's Paul Stone, and we're always thrilled to have him, and we are excited, of course, for his support of the program. Listen, speaking of rants, we got a couple of Rumble rants earlier today that I wanted to mention, because when we get Rumble rants, we always shout people out. The first one is from Drogon06, $5. Thank you, Mark, for all you do, bringing us the news and for keeping us laughing. Thank you so much, Drogon06. We also got one from Pita T, $5. Great show, Mark. Thanks, Pita T, maybe. I guess maybe Pita T instead of Pita T. And then Chiala, $5. Working and lurking creepily. Glad I joined today. Happy Friday, Patriots, and happy birthday to several of you in the chat. Thank you so much, Chiala. I appreciate all that. We appreciate all the Rumble rants, all the super chats we get on YouTube, everybody who supports us. And by the way, don't forget that this show went long today. This show went like, we're not going to do this in the future. But starting on Monday, we're going to have an after party on our locals page. We talked about this before, and we're bringing up something called the Kayetriot Club on locals. If you go to kayetriots.com, oh, it's right there. If you go to kayetriots.com, you can join our locals community. And when you become a supporter, you'll be able to have access to our after party every single day after the show. Whenever the show ends, we're going to jump into locals for a few extra minutes, and we're going to chit chat. We're going to do Q&A. We're going to have all kinds of great stuff. Kind of an extended version of the show. Maybe we'll do some more fun stories. Maybe we'll talk about, I don't know, Justin Bieber looking weird or the Hawk Tuah girl. Who knows? But it's going to be a blast, and it's for supporters only. And it's another great way that you can support the show, that you can get more from the show, because people are always saying, we need more show. We need more show. Okay, great. Well, now's your chance. You're going to have an after party, and it starts on Monday. So the best thing you can do now is go to kayetriots.com. It's right there. And you can join our locals. The locals is free to join, by the way. You have to become a supporter in order to get access to the after party. In addition to that, we're also going to have a 25% discount code that you can use for life on anything in the Mark Kaye shop. So when you go to the Mark Kaye shop, whatever the 15% discount code is, you get 10% on top of that just for being a member of the Kayetriot Club. Also, and this is my favorite part, we came up with free stickers. Who doesn't love free stickers? When you join the Kayetriot Club, you can claim your free stickers, and we'll send those out to you as well. It's going to be really awesome, man. I'm really excited to see it grow. We already have a couple. There's already a couple hundred of you in the Kayetriot Club, which is awesome. And I look forward to growing that even bigger and better. And we'll have, and you know what? And throughout the, if something comes up and we have another great idea, or we have another opportunity, or maybe we get an interview with somebody, maybe we'll just do it in the Kayetriot Club to show once again our thanks and our support for those people who support us. Go to kayetriots.com. And you can join today. There's two options, by the way. There's monthly, which is it's like $10 a month. Which again, keep in mind, it's just me. We're not backed by any corporate conglomerates. We have our sponsors for sure. We get Rumble Rants and Super Chats, which we love. We sell some clothing, but any and all support you can give us is great. It's $10 a month. If you want to do a year, you get 2 months for free. So I would recommend wholeheartedly. I would wholeheartedly recommend the year. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, set notifications, and don't forget to comment and share. Come back on Monday. We will be kicking off at 12:15. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic and our very first after party immediately after the show at the Kayetriot Club. Have a great weekend. Keep listening. Keep watching our videos. Make sure that you're coming. If you need to catch up on something, don't worry. We've got the podcasts recorded, and they're there for your listening pleasure any and all time you want, because we know that you never know when you're going to have some extra time. And when you do, use that time. Don't waste it. Don't scroll on TikTok aimlessly unless you're scrolling on my channel. Don't scroll on Instagram aimlessly unless you're following me. But really put it to good use. Listen to something. Watch something. Learn something. Get inspired by something. Do something that's going to keep that fire in your belly. That fire in your belly that's going to give you the energy to wake up every single day, and the enthusiasm to wake up every single day and say, this is my country. I love it. I will do whatever I need to do to protect it and to fight, and save the Republic. I'm so late. I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Go to kayetriots.com. Join now. Don't wait till Monday. Don't wait till Monday. I don't want you to miss out. Oh, by the way, if you're on Rumble, if you're watching on Rumblers, there's a red button there that says join. All you have to do to join the Kayetriot Club on Rumble is click that red button, and you're in like Flynn. So anyway, it's because in Rumble and locals are intertwined with each other. So we will see you on Monday.